Welcome to the Overture workshop. This presentation is meant for chapters who are still struggling with the adoption of Overture. There is frustration because chapters don't feel like their membership education process is unique enough, and their sense of individuality is gone. Here's some examples of criticism the Overture team has received. One is our chapter struggled with understanding the new order that information was taught in. They historically have an order that they usually use that differs from Overture. And with maintaining some of our traditions, I think some of these traditions could be implemented later with permission, but as VPM in the transition year, there were things I didn't have the capacity to do. For example, in the past, we would have 1 week of information where the VPM would teach it to the candidates, then the candidates would create a presentation about it to share with their actives. This is something we were unable to do this year. Another set of criticism is that we received, which is totally valid and you might be agreeing with them. I think that there is a lot of improvement that could be done to the learning activities. There were some in there that were purely informational, such as showing the website, which were fine, and then some that were more hands-on, i.e. trail mix for Robert's rules that were good, but a lot of them felt too intrusive and a little condescending to the candidates. Activities such as putting together skits or sending emails to former teachers felt more like activities you'd give to elementary schoolers than ones you'd give to young adults. I do not disagree with the idea of the activities, but the ones we were given to choose from were very hit or miss. So we definitely hear those criticisms, and that's why we're still working on it. So you might agree with these arguments, you might not, but I'm here today to help you make Overture your own and give you an understanding of why it was created, how it was created, and how to make it the best experience for your membership candidates. Okay, so during the 2017 National Convention in Orlando, the 2017-19 National Vice President for Colonization and Membership was charged by the delegation to create and standardize a national educational curriculum. Delegates watched Kappa Kappa Psi adopt the Road to Wisdom and wanted something similar. Industry standards in our insurance company was also pushing for this adaptation, so the National Council got to work. Of the 2-year process of developing Overture, please note that the first year was devoted to setting a curriculum order. This was the most important part of this programming, and dozens of conversations were had by our sorority leaders, higher education professionals, and curriculum development coordinators to make sure these modules were set up correctly. The order of learning about our national organization, then district, then chapter, was done on purpose with great care. It sets up the notion that this organization is bigger than any one of us or any specific chapter. I understand that chapter bond is crucial and so special, but please remember that the national organization as a whole comes first. The second year of Overture development was spent writing lessons and most importantly, having test groups. During the 2018-2019 school year, we had 3 separate test groups of Overture: the Alpha test group, the Beta, and the Activity test group. The Alpha group was a handful of chapter VPMs who initiated a fall class who used Overture. The Beta group was an expanded group of chapter VPMs with a spring class. Both the Alpha and Beta test group met with the curriculum chairs weekly to discuss what went well, what was unclear, and to ask any questions. The activity testers was a larger scale of chapters who tested specific activities and provided feedback. Careful consideration was made to include a variety of different chapters in this process, sampling from every region, type of school, and chapter size. And I think I saw Allison in here. Were you in here, Al? I think she is somewhere, but she can also, oh, good. She's welcome to chime in as well. She was also on the curriculum committee, so cool. And feel free, if you'd like to ask any questions or interject at all in the middle, please do. You may use the text or the chat function or even just interrupt and ask a question, please do. So yeah. I can't count how many times the original Overture document has been tweaked and changed to what it is today, but the overall idea of the document is the same: to provide the best introductory membership education plan for our members. If you think about the feedback, your chapter, and how your new members have experienced this process, it is positive. The biggest hurdle we are still working through is getting both the older active members and alumni to understand that change is okay. Just because this education process might be different than what you did, does that make it wrong? Not necessarily. If you take the time and look through the document, you might see some familiar activities. The team combed through the 2017 membership education plans and picked out dozens of activities for Overture. We looked at almost 140 plans to make sure you all felt ownership with this program. Our test groups also helped contribute their favorite activities and helped us modify these activities and modules in real time to best fit the membership candidates. And if you're wondering if looking through almost 140 MEPs was a little cumbersome, a little bit, but it was worth it. It was really interesting to see just the variety of different activities that chapters all over the country kind of said. So I thought it was pretty cool. Let's talk about how you can make Overture your very own. As a membership educator, your job is to meet the needs of your students and help them learn the material to become the best sisters they can be. Overture was designed to take the burden of what you should be teaching, so you can focus on how to teach it. So what's the first step? Your first step is to read the introduction document thoroughly and then read it again. It is such an important couple of pages that will give you a lot of resources. A lot of frustrated emails that we've gotten this year, could have been avoided by reading the introduction. Your next step is to decide your teaching schedule. The introduction document will help provide guidance with this. Are you planning to have a 6-week education process, 12? For all times such in between, there's a recommendation for what to teach when. Each module is roughly 90 minutes in length, but can be shortened or lengthened depending on your needs. This is your first step in taking ownership in something only you can understand and master for your chapter. So your next step is to make sure you adjust your teaching of each module to fit the needs of all your membership candidates. So I know this sounds like something that education students are based off of, but I think really anybody has the ability to teach and adjust. It just depends. Really what you need to do is look on how your membership candidates are responding and even ask them, like, how are you doing? Do you like this? Would you like to see more of this? Stuff like that. So are the students chatty and want to do more group discussions? Are they quiet and pragmatic? Adjust before you start each education lesson. Whether or not you're an education major, you can and should adjust constantly. Before the lesson is taught, set your lesson and pick activities that work the best. When you're in the midst of your lesson, adjust on the fly to your activities to fit the time allotted that you need. So, too long, didn't read, before, pick, during, adjust. Okay, so a couple more things before we look at some examples of Overture and how to make it your own. This is a fluid, ever-changing document. It is set for the most part, but more things will be added as needed. It will be updated every semester with feedback by those using it, so please contact the committee with questions, concerns, or suggestions. And you'll see that email right there. Please jot that down or use it for reference. I think we post it all over the place, so please do that. The documents in the process of being created at the moment are guidebooks for both the educator and membership candidates. We've listened to the feedback over the past year and agree that these resources are a good idea. Stay tuned to our social media for details regarding both of these documents as we move closer to August. So one question we've received a lot of is, why isn't there the latest version of Overture online on your website so everyone can check it out? There's 2 reasons for this. One is so old copies that are outdated and not the newest version show up. And then also, secondly, so more important lessons and activities could be helped. So could be set on ritual degrees, something that hasn't happened before and something that's important, extremely important to reflect on. Of a lot of the feedback we've gotten, a lot of chapters and membership candidates and VPMs, their favorite activities include ritual. So I think it's valid to do that for sure. All right, going off of this, let's go ahead and take a look at Overture. So I decided to look at module 5. I literally, as I was preparing this presentation, I literally flipped to a page because I feel confident that every one of these lessons will work for this presentation. So we're going to slowly scroll through page 98. This is 97, and then we're going to go looking at page 98. Just skim through it if you haven't looked at it yet or if you're familiar with it. So looking at it, pretty clear cut. We have the learning content. It's up to the VPM to read these or share this information with the MCs. Just think about, if you're planning this lesson, how you would want to share this information. Would you want it on a PowerPoint, which we've had quite a few districts even help in making those, and chapters make those, so there's some resources that way. Would you like to share with them the actual handbook almost, or just website with this? Just think about what you would want to do with it. So this just talks, and also I want to talk a little bit and show scholarships because those are due on Friday. So go do that if you have not yet. As you finish your last final or need another win after a final, go ahead and apply for a scholarship. We've got $1,000 scholarships to give out. That is fantastic. Speaking of awards, we'll have 10 baton recipients that will be awarded this evening for our National Council presentation. So we hope you come back at 5 p.m. Eastern time for that. It's pretty exciting. We gave out a lot of recognition certificates this year, especially March 1st. You guys were excellent on that, being a Focus on 5 requirement. It was excellent. I hope that was cool to see how that worked within your band banquets or just recognizing those people. All right, so looking at the learning activities. So I'm going to pretend I am the VPM in this situation, and I'm gonna kind of see my audience. I see how many people we have, and I see maybe what we're thinking about. So we have multiple options. If you were VPM at this moment, if you were trying to do a couple modules at a time, you might do the at-home reflections to do. So we're not going to do that right now, but, or if you have time to do a connection reflection. But you noticed just facilitating discussion, and that's gonna, like, if you have a membership class or if you've had one before, or you're just figuring out how to utilize Overture for your future education classes, it's kind of just a give and take. Like those first couple modules are going to be not uncomfortable, but it'll just take a while to get, not used to, but just comfortable. I guess that's the same thing, but just give yourself time to teach and give yourself time to get to know those membership candidates. Don't think that I will get to you in a moment, Al, don't think it's going to be perfect right away. But just take time. If you're worried that it's not good enough, that means you're probably doing okay, honestly, because you're taking that time and effort to do that. What's up, Al? Allison, sorry, I'm going to stop giving nicknames to people in here because this is a formal situation.
I think something that we really heard a lot through the piloting process was that the first few modules seemed like there wasn't as much discussion. And like Leslie just mentioned, that some of it is that people are getting used to one another and being in that environment, and maybe the MCs have never actually talked to half of their class before. One of the other things that we found through the pilot was that just trying to encourage them, maybe bringing in some active members who can help in having discussions, giving their own perspective, was one of the great things to do. And also that the material is kind of more fact-based. So it wasn't as much like, how do you feel about this? How can you engage? It was more like, what is this sign? What is this symbol? And that just in its own nature made it so that it was more like information, retention, information, retention. But as you go through the modules, they get more and more interactive. So even if you feel like it's starting off dry, you'll like ease into it as the modules also ease into having more discussions.
Natural progression that way. Yes, Allison, thank you. Those of you that have been through the whole set of modules, you'll notice we've heard a lot of feedback that module 8 is one of their favorites as well, because it's basically entirely reflection. So get all those feels in there, because that's why we do these things, to support and do projects and stuff like that. So yeah. So one thing along with that is something that we had, I don't know where it went, but on all of these lessons or beginning, I think, yeah. So one thing, feedback we had from the alpha group, I think, was they wanted to see like materials needed or recommended attendees, and that's really helpful for that situation. So you can plan for that, and there's no better buy-in from your chapter if they get to be involved as well. I think a lot of the pushback, I think it's starting to ease a little bit because we've been working on this for the past year, but the most pushback we've received from Overture was from our older active members, because like you won't get that same type of pushback from the new members because they wouldn't know any different, right? So getting that buy-in is helpful. Getting them involved in that, I think, is helpful. So yeah. So cool. So yeah, so when we went through activities, that activity I kind of thought about in my head and prepared. I thought about how many are in my MC class. Are they talkative? Do they like written assignments? Sometimes you'll have classes like that. Sometimes you'll have ones that are chatty Cathy's and will want to talk and be best friends, which that's usually really fun. So yeah, are you doing 2 modules that lesson and need to pick at-home activities, stuff like that. I don't remember if I talked about this I'll probably talk about it later too, but something that I'm really proud of with Overture and these activities and the presentation of these activities is we did our best to fit the needs of every learner. As an educator myself, I think it's really important to have different activities that fit our auditory, our visual, just different types. So you have different not buy-in, but different interest, and you hit most needs. Like everybody will have their favorite module based on what activities they do. So I think that's really important to do. I felt very strongly on that. So yeah, it was cool. So looking at the at-home activity that was on here, let me scroll slowly down so I'm not making you motion sick. So I would recommend mixing these at-home activities along in with the class activities, not only to save time, but to cater to your membership candidates' needs. I guarantee you that if I had the choice, if I was a student, to do this or my classwork, I would do this just as something fun. Or if I need a break from my more intense stuff, as what you're all doing right now, taking a break from your finals and everything like that, you'd want to do this bonding thing. So the VPMs who have talked to us about these activities really enjoy getting these assignments back for the home activities and seeing that passion that the MCs put into it. It kind of makes it worth it, that work you're putting into it, to see that buy-in they have from it itself. So yeah, cool. So notice and know that there are assessments for each module, but please remember that they are voluntary and not mandatory. I put this in capitalization because please note that. Please, please, please. I cannot stress that enough. They're a great tool if you like them, but there's other options. The Overture team actually met on Tuesday this week, and we were talking, and something we're starting to work on is Kahoot assessments, which I think the world enjoys. So be on the lookout for that as things advance that way. So yeah. Yeah, so the last thing I want to touch on before questions, and one more fun thing, is to make sure your class is bonding during this experience. I believe these activities help do that. I don't think she's here, but I was actually doing a podcast interview with a member of the Eta Delta chapter this week named Kayla Lennon, and she said one of my favorite things that I've heard about the sorority, and I want to pass it along to you all in regards to educating our members. So just remember that purpose forces the bonds to become stronger. We have this purpose to serve the bands, to do these things. You're going to naturally feel closer to one another because of that. So yeah, deep. So think about that. If we do something as a group with a purpose, we feel that much more connected to each other. If you're educating a class in the future, take time to enjoy connecting with the students and watching them grow in the bond. And that's why Overture was created. So you can focus on building that purposeful connection. So yeah, and if you haven't yet, make sure to go and join a Facebook group for Overture, whether or not you're an educator, if you're an active member. It's really helpful on when things get revealed, everything like that. So yeah. Yeah, I already said those, so we're good. I contact the Overture at TB Sigma. That goes to every person on the committee, which I feel like it grows every day, which is good. Erica's got a posse of people at her helm. Erica, the VPCM, is our fearless leader in all of this. If you want to contact me directly, Lesler at tbsigma.org, and then also that Facebook group again.